Musk will turn out, if they keep him, will be the greatest generator, let me be very, say this very specifically, the greatest generator of Democratic turnout ever, more than Barack Obama. Musk will turn out more Democrats than Obama.
Ah, yes, the raging Cajun, mentally ill James Carville. He can see the future, and it's full of bimbo eruptions, isn't it? He never knows what you'll turn up when you drag a $100 bill through a trailer park. That's James Carville. Never mind what Democrats have a long history of doing, because none of that matters. Certainly not to the Democrats, and that means none of it matters to the news media, because they're virtually all Democrat Party front groups. I was doing a little poking around on Al Gore's amazing internet. Have you seen this internet? I think it might catch on. I found an article, a work from the Brookings Institution, a left-wing think tank. They've got ties to that Russian who was involved in setting up President Trump. I remember the Brookings Institution. Left-wing radicals. But I found an article from the Brookings Institution, still on their website, from 2013 when Barack Obama was president, and it's lessons for the future of government. But they talk about the fact that in a kind of a sideways fashion, that it was the Bill Clinton administration that cut more than 400,000 jobs from the federal workforce. In fact, more than 426,000 jobs. The Clinton administration. They held a press conference in the Rose Garden at the White House with Bill Clinton and Al Gore. And it's not clear whether Bill Clinton helped Al Gore relieve his chakra or not. At least it wasn't on video. But they bragged about the fact that they reduced the federal workforce by 426,000 people. And they say that they saved the American taxpayer $136 billion, $136 billion, probably more than that, actually, if you look at it over the long term. But when Bill Clinton and Al Gore, when they reduced the federal workforce by 426,000 people, the news media applauded because they all wanted to date Bill Clinton, and some of them even wanted to date Al Gore, which could be hazardous to your health in a whole lot of ways. Now, how many jobs has President Trump? They offered buyouts, right? And tens of thousands, about 75,000 people, I think, took the federal buyouts. And so that is probably the lion's share of people that took buyouts. And then you cut 400 jobs at the FAA, where they employ more than 45,000 people, and the Democrat Party goes crazy. Now, how many people? 426,000? Get back to me when they've cut 426,000. Amazing stuff. Now, the news media, they're all over this. The fakes at the Associated Press, for example, which used to be the backbone of journalism in the United States, but now it's just another Democrat Party front group corrupted by lefties that have taken over. Their headline is, nearly 40% of contracts canceled by Musk's Doge are expected to produce no savings. They want to convince you that it doesn't matter how much you cut contracts or cut government, cut the size of government, it will lead to no savings at all, which is, of course, impossible. But they're okay with that because, just amazing stuff. Your people, your government people. Jamie Dimon, the big finance J.P. Morgan CEO, he's out there talking about the government and how the government needs a lot of fixing, needs a lot of help because government's out of control. But never mind that. The Associated Press, Ryan J. Foley, Democrat Party / Associated Press. He types on behalf of his party, nearly 40% of the federal contracts that President Donald Trump's administration claims to have canceled as part of its signature cost-cutting program aren't expected to save the government any money, the administration's own data shows. See, This is, they can read documents when they have to. They just spent 4 years not reading anything. The Department of Government Efficiency, that's DOGE, run by Trump advisor Elon Musk, published an updated list Monday of nearly 2,300 contracts that agencies terminated in recent weeks across the federal government. Data published on DOGE's Wall of Receipts shows that more than one-third of the contract cancellations, 794 in all, are expected to yield no savings. Well, wait a minute. So two-thirds then will produce savings? Is that? And this is another short-term versus long-term thing. That's usually, this is what they write, that's usually because the total value of the contracts has already been fully obligated. So wait, we pay up front before the work is done. Therefore, you'd have to ask for the money back, and we're not going to do that. But we canceled the contract, so we won't be paying for them twice. But the Associated Press isn't going to cover it that way, right? That's usually because total value of the contract's already been fully obligated, which means the government has a legal requirement to spend the funds for the goods or services purchased, and in many cases has already done so. It's like confiscating used ammunition. Well, they're always talking about gunfire and shooting and killing. The left is very, very violent in everything they do. So Charles Taffler, a retired University of Baltimore law professor, an expert in government contracting law, says it's like confiscating used ammunition after it's been shot when there's nothing left in it. It doesn't accomplish the policy objective. Are we going to renew the contract for next year? Are we going to keep doing it over and over again? Fake law professor Charles Taffler, Baltimore, he's retired. They're terminating so many contracts pointlessly. Obviously, doesn't accomplish anything for saving money. That's what a left-wing radical former law professor contacted by the Associated Press from Baltimore, Charles Tiefler, T-I-E-F, Tiefer, no L, just Tiefer. Isn't that amazing? An administration official said it made sense to cancel contracts that are seen as potential dead weight, even if the moves do not yield any savings. Now, see, they're leaving out phrases like in the short term, right? Because, this has already been paid for, but we're canceling. So going forward, presumably we're not going to keep doing this, right? The official was not authorized to discuss the matter publicly and spoke on the condition of anonymity. Absolutely. An administration official said the move to cancel the contract seen as potential dead weight, even if the move does not immediately lead to savings. The Trump administration says it's targeting fraud, waste, and abuse in the government, says the Associated Press. Every sentence is corruptly stacked here. Just amazing. Now, amazing stuff. DOGE said Monday that the cost-cutting efforts had saved an estimated $65 billion, including canceling leases, grants, cutting employees, and selling assets. Yeah, but not the southern wall, not the wall which the Democrats were selling at bargain basement prices, the wall sections that we had built to secure our southern border. The Democrats are closer to the cartels than they are to mainstream Americans. That's the Mexican drug cartels, just to be perfectly clear. Wah, wah, wah. Some of the canceled contracts were for research studies that have been awarded. Sure. Training that has taken place. So it's already a done deal. You're right. You're probably not going to save on training that's already been taking place for contracts that have already been paid for. But are we renewing the contracts in the next fiscal quarter, in the next year? But this is our news media, corrupting everything they touch. Paying for a software that has already been purchased. And interns who have come and gone. Keep the interns away from Bill Clinton, though. Just ask Monica Lewinsky about that. Dozens of them were widely paid subscriptions for the Associated Press Politico, and other media services that the Republican administration says it would discontinue. Yeah, you remember how many millions and millions of dollars did we give to Politico? Because the government pays for subscriptions to left-wing media outlets, and these subscriptions amount to millions and millions of dollars and keep organizations like Politico in business when all they do is the work of the Democrat Party and the left. But that's just fine. And the administration said, well, we're not going to keep paying millions of dollars for our subscriptions to Politico online, of course, that we don't even know if anybody uses them. We just funnel millions of dollars to friendly news outlets like Politico. And then when they're caught, they say, what? They're for subscriptions. As they weren't handouts. They don't do a thing for them, except you get a password and you can access Politico online. And they got, I think that was $8 million for Politico in awards. And interestingly, the Associated Press doesn't get into that kind of detail. Wah, wah, wah. Just amazing. Other canceled contracts were to purchase a wide range of goods and services. Yeah, how many goods? I mean, honestly, I work in 2 newsrooms, and nobody pays for my subscriptions to the Washington Post or to Politico or the Associated Press or anything else. Nobody pays for my personalized subscriptions to anything. I do a 3-hour radio show here and a 1-hour TV show on Newsmax every night, and nobody pays my way for any of this stuff. But if you work in the government, as long as you're a left-wing outlet like Politico, you get millions and millions of dollars from the federal government. And interestingly, the Associated Press doesn't cover the news. They cover it up. They don't ask questions like, well, wait a minute. Are you guys also giving millions of dollars to Breitbart News or to Newsmax TV or buying the Chris Plant Show online? Are you doing any of that? The answer is no. They only funnel money to Democrat-friendly media outlets by the millions and millions of dollars. They've already been caught, and the Associated Press is engaging in a cover-up here. Well, the contracts, they're talking about Department of Housing and Urban Development, awarded a contract in September to purchase and install office furniture at various branches. You know, the places where nobody goes in to work. Hey, it's time for new office furniture. Let's buy it all. While the contract does not expire until later this year, federal records show that the agency has already agreed to spend the maximum of $567,809 with a furniture company. But wait a minute, didn't we just learn that nobody goes into the office? Everybody's WFH, working from home? The agency for USAID, U.S. Agency for International Development, negotiated a $145,549 contract last year to clean the carpet at its headquarters in Washington, where no one goes to work. But the full amount had already been obligated. See, not paid, obligated to a firm that is owned, listen now, by a Native American tribe based in Michigan, and they clean carpets in Washington. Isn't that great? It's $146,000. And the Democrats award based on race because they're racists. And this is all fine with them, right? Isn't that just great? And the Associated Press is explaining this in this story as though the Republicans are dumb, thinking they can save any money anywhere because they're already committed to paying a Native American tribe based in Michigan to clean a carpet in Washington, D.C. for $145,000. I'll clean the carpet for $120,000. But I'm not Native American, like Elizabeth Warren is, so that doesn't work. Isn't that amazing? And they find these has-been, he's got this, quoting the has-been law professor from Baltimore again that nobody's ever heard of. It's too late for the government to change its mind on many of these contracts and walk away from its payment obligation. See, the Democrats, they always lock everything in. Just amazing stuff. Yes, sir. He was involved in spending money in Iraq and Afghanistan, the law professor. Our media, the most corrupt institution in America.
My papa had high cheekbones like all of the Indians do.
Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. Okay. An illegal alien that stopped at Guantanamo Bay before being returned to Venezuela is very upset. He was very traumatized by being deported. Tell your friends back in Venezuela. All right, now let's go to the telephones. Let's go to Ken, calling from Prince William County in Virginia. Kenneth, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Thank you, Chris, and I appreciate you. I was just wondering if back when Obama and Clinton were cutting the federal workforce, we had the same negative view of the economy around here, like we do now.
Do you recall these instances and the reaction back then?
No, sir, I don't. For some reason, it just didn't seem to register.
I understand, because they weren't a big deal. They weren't big news. The news media patted Bill Clinton and Al Gore on the back, and they told us what a great job they're doing, because Bill Clinton yelled, the era of big government is over. And then they cut 426,000 jobs from the government, and nobody batted an eye. Why do you think that is, Ken?
Well, it could be the way it was portrayed in the media. The same media that gets money from, let's say, USAID for maybe $500 million, and they still don't think it's a conflict of interest.
Yeah, Politico with their millions of dollars, and then they very blithely explained, oh well, government employees paid for with taxpayer dollars have subscriptions to our online services that are very useful and very helpful to government employees. But they don't give millions of dollars to any conservative outlets. I find that curious, and we don't know whether government employees are using Politico online. We just know that they're paying Politico millions of tax dollars to keep Politico running because they're another front group for the Democrat Party. I'm beginning to think there's a lot of corruption around here, Ken.
Yes, sir, I agree. And, these two, Mr. Trump and Mr. Musk, are seasoned business people, and they kind of think they're forward thinking, and they kind of understand what's going to happen if Dynamo A falls, what's going to happen further down the line.
Well, yeah, they're going to have to, thank you, Ken, and they're going to have to fight the fight every domino of the way.
The era of big government is over.
This report tells us how to cut waste, cut red tape, streamline the bureaucracy, change procurement rules, change the personnel rules, and create a government that works better and costs less.
Al Gore in 1993, they slashed 426,000 jobs from the federal government, and the federal government was smaller then. So it was a larger percentage of the federal government that Bill Clinton and Al Gore cut, and of course they were praised for it because, we have a very, very corrupt news media, our news media. More corrupt than ever. Aren't they amazing? Man, oh man. Let me get to, first I mentioned this Venezuelan illegal alien. NBC News is very upset that an illegal alien stopped off at Guantanamo Bay, slept a few nights before getting a nice flight back to Venezuela. NBC News should play this all day long on NBC Network so everybody sees it. The fake headline from NBC Fake News is, deported Venezuelan says he's, quote, traumatized, end quote, by his time in Guantanamo. Guantanamera, we got a Guantanamera. Kevin Rodriguez. Kevin is his name? Is like an Irish Venezuelan guy. Kevin Rodriguez, now back in Venezuela, said the uncertainty of not knowing how long he would be in the U.S. military facility was what worried him the most. That's what worried him the most. How long am I going to be in this tropical paradise of Cuba and Guantanamo Bay, Guantanamera? How long? And they got a couple of Democrats typing on behalf of the Democrat Party. Nicole Acevedo and Johanna Suarez. A young Venezuelan who was deported back to his country said he was traumatized by his time at the U.S. military prison in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Kevin Rodriguez, 22, Duarte, is one of 178 Venezuelan immigrants sent to Guantanamo this month after President Donald Trump's order to use the detention camp to speed up his administration's goal of mass deportations. NBC is against all this. They want to be murdered by Venezuelan gang members. In an exclusive interview with Noticias Telemundo, that's NBC's Spanish-language sister network, Rodriguez detailed the conditions he said he experienced at the military prison during the 2 weeks he was detained before returning to Venezuela on Thursday. Very indignant at NBC Fake News. The Department of Homeland Security and the Immigration Customs Enforcement did not respond to emails seeking comment about Rodriguez's case and his allegations about the conditions in Guantanamo. The conditions, Guantanamo. Rodriguez said the cobwebs and ants inside the approximately 6-foot by 9-foot cell that they gave him, and they said, gave him a sense that the place had long been unoccupied. He's very literate. He said it gave him a sense that the place had long been unoccupied. There were cobwebs and there were ants. Oh, no. Well, it's a tropical place. There might be ants. He said, those cells were in very bad condition, said one of the first accounts of migrant detained there. You could really see that no one had been there in a long time. That's because Joe Biden let them all go. All the terrorists are back out there hoping to kill your family soon. They didn't even clean them. Maid service. Where's the maid service? They didn't even clean them. There were cobwebs and there were ants. They didn't even clean them, he said. He thinks that there's maid service at Guantanamo. That's kind of crazy, isn't it? They didn't even clean them. He said a thin mattress separated him from the concrete bed top he slept on for 14 days, quote, enduring the cold. It's Cuba. But, okay, it's also February. Not February, but February. According to Rodriguez, the illegal alien, they don't talk about, whether he's got gang tattoos or is affiliated, his career of crime and gang activity. They leave all that out. According to Rodriguez, detainees were taken out in handcuffs to shower every 3 days. Well, the ants help you stay clean in the meantime. They searched us before we went into the shower, he said. When we came out, they searched us again. Well, you guys couldn't smuggle stuff. The food was really bad, and there was very little food. There's an old joke about that, right? There's an old, I think, Mel Brooks tells that. It's like, and I think Woody Allen tells this joke, too. It's, the old joke. The food was really bad, and there was very little food. So it's like, I said, the food is, it's an old Jewish joke that, like Woody Allen tells. And there's, the food here is terrible, isn't it? Yeah, it's terrible. And the portions are so small. So this guy Maybe he's an aspiring stand-up comedian. The food was really bad, and there was very little food, Rodriguez said. Said he lost 9 pounds while he was there. The last meal of the day was at 4 p.m. It was on the Joe Biden schedule, I think. Then by 7, 8, 9, we were very hungry. What time was your first meal? We didn't. The NBC News doesn't cover the important details here. Amazing stuff. Amazing. Our Democrat Party. So it wasn't nice. Well, when you get back to Venezuela, tell your gang member friends, okay? Just amazing. Amazing stuff. Yes, sir. The time of the transfer, officials did not disclose the names of the illegal aliens being relocated. They only described as Venezuelan citizens under final deportation orders. By withholding that information, Venezuelans like Nelson Rodriguez, Kevin Rodriguez's father, lost track of their loved ones for weeks. Please help me, Nelson Rodriguez told Noticias Telemundo on February 15th. Built as a wartime prison in the wake of September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks, Guantanamo Bay is also often associated with the idea of indefinite detention without a charge. They're still fighting. NBC News is still fighting for the terrorists. Don't worry about it. Joe Biden let them all go. That's why there were cobwebs. Isn't that amazing? Your Democrat Party. The Associated Press has another breaking news story today. 21 employees resign from DOJ, refusing to, quote, dismantle critical public services. That's the Associated Press. They're doing propaganda all day, every day for the Democrat Party. More than 20 civil service employees resigned Tuesday from Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, saying they refuse to use their technical expertise to dismantle critical public services. They can MSNBC's hiring. They can go over there. The employees also warned that many of those enlisted by Musk to help him slash the size of the federal government under President Donald Trump's administration were political ideologues who did not have the necessary skills or expertise for the task ahead of them. It sounds to me like the political ideologues are the ones that quit their career civil service jobs today because they object to anyone that wants to reduce the size of government. But the Associated Press pulls that sock inside out. Isn't that amazing? Wah, wah, wah. All right, and then they say congressional budget vote. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson will try against the odds to muscle a Republican budget blueprint to passage this week. A step toward delivering Trump's big, beautiful bill with $4.5 trillion in tax breaks and $2 trillion in spending cuts over stiff opposition from the Democrats. You know, the Democrats, their opposition can very often be stiff. Yes, indeed. Isn't that amazing? So they're trying to get a bill passed. And with that, let's go to the Speaker of the House. I'm not really, like the Associated Press and NBC News, I'm not very concerned about illegal alien gang members from Venezuela and whether their accommodations had maid service recently enough. But let's go to soundbite number 10. This is the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, yesterday, talking about getting the great big beautiful bill passed, the budget bill passed, as President Trump has requested.
This is a prayer request. Just pray this through for us. Because it is very high stakes, and everybody knows that. If you're a small business owner, this is a very challenging time because you don't know what to expect. The markets don't know what to expect. The bond market doesn't know what to expect. So putting that clarity in as early as possible is critical. So the way to do that is with one big, beautiful bill. My calendar has us passing this by probably the first week of April and getting it to the Senate so they can do their work on it.
In Washington, that's real fast, all right? February, March, April. That's real quick. Hey, it's one big, beautiful bill. We're going to get it. Hey, it's only going to be like a month and a half before we get the thing to the floor. Speaker Mike Johnson, one big, beautiful bill.
The reason that we're putting the extensions of the TCJA, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the seminal achievement, one of the seminal achievements of the first Trump administration, the reason that's in reconciliation is because, as we noted, those tax cuts are going to expire at the end of this year if we don't fix it. And the reason we have to do it early in the process and not wait until the end of this year or later is because everybody needs to see the effects of that, like ASAP, right?
ASAP. That's right. That's a fact. And isn't that amazing? Yes, sir. So they're trying to get the big bill passed, and it's trillions. They're trying to keep the Trump tax cuts in place, which is, the Democrats, they're going to steal everything they can from you because they have all the guns. They want to take away your guns because they're basically communists at this point. But the Speaker of the entire House of Representatives, Mike Johnson, this morning on Capitol Hill came out and talked to the president, a regularly scheduled thing, about where we stand.
I think the vast majority of the American people understand and applaud and appreciate the DOGE effort, the goal to scale down the size and scope of government. Our party is committed to that as a core principle. We always have been. And the reason we're excited about what Elon Musk and the team at DOGE are doing, the end result of that is going to be achieving the goal that we've always had, and that is to make government more efficient, just as the name of that operation and that project implies.
The Department of Government Efficiency, you can see why the Democrats would oppose that. And cost cutting, you can see why the Democrats would oppose that. Reducing the size of government, you can see why the Democrats would oppose that because they're basically commies. Speaker of the entire House.
If we can save $1 trillion in fraud, waste, and abuse, which Elon has said in recent weeks and told me in his office a couple weeks ago, he thinks it's very possible this year to identify and eliminate $1 trillion of waste of your taxpayer dollars. You ought to be standing up and applauding that, and we all do.
And we all do. By the way, I have another update on this 21 federal employees. The Associated Press left out a couple of vitally important details because they're not in the news business. They're in the Democrat Party propaganda business. They're in the lie to everybody business. Even ABC fake news. I don't think they meant to do this. Maybe they'll go back and edit it later. 21 federal technology staffers resign rather than help Musk and DOGE slash the size of government. Now, the Associated Press went on and on about that. But here's what they left out. They left out, and ABC News, believe it or not, accidentally put this in. They left out that the people that quit are all Obama people. Wait a minute. They're all Obama people? The staffers who resigned worked for what was once known as the United States Digital Service. That is the office established during Barack Obama's presidency, during his administration. And after the botched rollout of the healthcare.gov, Obamacare, that web portal that millions of Americans use to sign up for the Obamacare, which is a total shakedown and robbery, all had previously held senior roles in tech company at Google and Amazon, Democrats, and then they went to work for the Obama administration, and these are the people that resigned, 21 of them, in protest because they don't want to see the Trump administration, who they didn't vote for, reducing the size of government because coming from Google and Amazon and the Obama administration and Obamacare. And what are they still doing there? But now, they're not there anymore because they resigned today. Isn't that amazing? Just amazing stuff. So that's the update on that. They're Obama administration people, and the Associated Press is, oh no, these government employees, they can't stand what they're seeing and they quit. Well, that's good. They just downsized government by another 21 people. They did it voluntarily. I think that's good, right? Isn't that amazing? And ABC News accidentally revealed that these staffers worked for the Obama administration, and they just never leave. Right? Our media, the most corrupt institution in America. Now, the Washington Post has another story today. Invasive frisks, suicide attempts. 3 migrants describe Guantanamo detention. So wait a minute. The Washington Post is talking to and NBC News and the Associated Press. Everybody's talking to these guys who spent a little time at Guantanamo on their way back home. Hey, have a nice trip. Let's grab a phone call, Michael. Let's go to Kelvin calling from the great state of Virginia. Kelvin, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Very good. Kelvin, what do you say?
I'll make it quick, man. I just I can't wrap my mind around how this guy that took a 2-week vacation. It must be really tough compared to those 4- and 5-star hotels my tax dollars are going towards to keep these illegal immigrants in.
That's a good point. And that's why he
boggles my mind, man.
He missed the maid service. He's like, there are cobwebs and there are ants. He said, it looks like it hasn't been cleaned in a long time.
He said, this hotel doesn't have room service. What's going on?
I can't believe the way I'm being treated. And it's true. The Washington Post story goes on and on. Some of the men screamed. Others threatened to kill themselves. One interviewed by the Washington Post said he attempted it. It's Cuba. It's you have your own room. It's not, honestly, it's true. I guess the 4-star hotels in New York were nicer.
Yes, I'm sure they were. They were. But have a blessed day, Chris.
No, thank you very much, Kelvin. Very nice. They, the maid service, I guess they got used to the maid service up there. Yeah, the Washington Post goes on, and they've got a guy, I don't think they even say where he's from, but they've got a guy named Diovar Uzkatugi. And Diovar Izukut, I don't believe they even say where he's from, but it was very bad while he was in Guantanamo Bay. They say he was there for 2 weeks, too. I don't think they've even had 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks might be an exaggeration. But our news media doesn't check this stuff out. They just make it up. Isn't that amazing? Now, I'm not even going to get to President Trump talking about ending the war in Ukraine, because that'd be a good thing, wouldn't it? Ending the war in Ukraine. President Trump yesterday talking about, so I can't say exactly when, but we're working on it. Russia's at the table. That was never the case when Joe Biden was in the White House and the war was ripping on. Now they've got legless, armless war veterans going back to the front lines. That's what the news media is telling us. I'm not sure that sounds like a good idea. Amazing stuff. And President Trump talking about tariffs, too. Tariffs for China, for Mexico, for Canada. But he's actually negotiating about the trade imbalance, and it's going to come out more in our favor by the time he's done.